Hey everybody, welcome to the show, Board Game Reviews. This week we've been looking at the Apocrypha Adventure Card Game. In this video I'm going to give you my actual opinion and a review of the game itself. If you want to see a quick overview, see some sample gameplay, or actually just learn how to play the game, check out the other videos in the series. This video I'm just going to tell you what I thought about the game itself. Now the adventure card game Apocrypha is an adventure card game. Obviously it uses cards and dice. So this is a game that has a very strong tie to its theme. I mean, you're not looking at the Apocrypha Adventure Card Game because you're looking for very deep mechanics. That's not an insult towards the game, it's just a style game. This isn't a deep Euro game. This is an adventure game, it's a story game, it's a role-playing game. It's a game of adventure and story all built into a game where you're playing cards and you're basically just rolling dice and hedging your bets, where you're hoping that you can roll well enough to defeat certain baddies and continue on along a storyline in a game that has a very modern feel, married to popular TV shows such as Supernatural, TV shows such as Grimm, or if you want to time travel a little bit, go look at TV shows such as Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or a whole bunch of different shows of those ilk. I can just name a couple different shows where this game is really strongly themed after. And if you're just talking about theme in and of itself, this game has done a fantastic job of mimicking that theme that they're trying to show and bring across in this game. This isn't a game, and I'm going to have to make the reference because everybody wants to know how does this compare. This isn't a game that's trying hard not to be the Pathfinder Adventure Card Game, because it's not the Pathfinder Adventure Card Game. This is a game that's taken a very spiritual evolution of the Pathfinder Adventure Card Game to create a game that is much more evolved, while at the same time being more open, being less about a party of adventurers and being much more about a world that's living, breathing, and evolving, and heroes and villains and bad guys who are interacting with this world. And the story isn't quite about Dr. Z's and his adventures. It's not about the good cop or the biker chick or the friendly old grandma or any one of these different heroes. This game 100% is about the world, the interaction with the world, and how the story plays out. And I'm mentioning this right now because I'm going to circle back on that just a little bit here. And actually, before I go any further, I should also mention that I've actually purchased this game earlier this year. I played it before, but I got my own personal copy this year. And as far as I can tell, it does appear that everything has been errated. The only thing, and again, I'm comparing everything that was in the box to the application that comes with the game. The only thing I have noticed that's not updated is the rulebook, which you can download online. But it looks like all the cards, at least from what I can tell, do have all the updated errata, at least comparing the FAQs and everything I've seen. So a little bit of a segue, but I just want to let you know that if you're curious, that is a fact right now, that the updated version of the game that you buy right now has the updated cards as far as I can tell, but you still have the old rulebook. And I'm going to circle back on the rulebook in just a minute too, and that's why I also want to mention that. So, what are we looking at? Because we want to compare this to adventure card game of Pathfinder. What is different in this game? What has evolved? What has changed? Because you're going to look at this game and say, hey, I played the Pathfinder Adventure Card Game. Is this a game that I'm going to go, well, I really like Pathfinder. I might like Apocrypha. Or is this a game where you go, well, you know, I didn't like Pathfinder at all. I thought it was a silly game where I basically was just rolling dice and playing cards all the time. What's different here? What's going to make me pull into the game here? So what have they done to the game to evolve the gameplay quite a bit? Well, one of the first things you're going to notice when you play the Apocrypha Adventure Card Game is they've evolved the dice mechanics. That's the biggest thing that I will say that they have evolved in this game. Not talking about the story, because the story is very much evolved, and I'm going to talk about the story here in a little bit too. But the biggest thing they've done with this game is they've made it more challenging, but in a very much more progressive feel to it. And if you play the game, you understand what I mean. Because when you play this game, the first set of adventures, well, heck, I'm just going to be blunt here. It's almost going to sound mean, but sometimes as a reviewer, you got to sound mean. The first series of adventures is the Counterpoint, and Counterpoint really does, especially I'd say probably the first 5 or 6 missions, they all feel like training missions. They got the training wheels in there, and it's pretty much emphasized by the fact that if you look at every one of these missions, when you win them, you only get oh my gosh, English is tough for me today. You only get fleeting fragments. You don't even start getting the really good rewards until you start going into the other missions. So the initial Counterpoint there is just a very slow progression, but This game, what they've done to evolve the mechanics of the typical Pathfinder, where when you played Pathfinder, when you knew you were coming up for the big bad, everybody would start hoarding their little boon cards. And then when you came for the big bad, everybody would say, boon, 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 boon. And you throw like 15 D12s at it and you go, yeah, we win, no matter what's going to happen. So what they've done in this game to increase the challenge and actually make your decisions matter much more is as you're playing this game, you need to look at your hand of cards, and these hand of cards are going to give you abilities. Here's the challenge with all these cards. It doesn't matter how many cards you have, how well you play the cards. The most amount of cards you will ever factor into any check is 3 dice. So the more cards you're factored in, it's going to give you more dice. So as you play more cards, you're going to gain more dice and more dice and more dice. And typically the most dice you'll ever get to roll is 8 dice. Of course, there's some cards that allow you to throw an extra body die in there or something like that, but they're few and far between. They do break the rules. What they've done is they made it so it doesn't matter how many dice you roll, you're only going to take your 3 best. So what that has done is that has also increased the amount of cooperation among the players, because as the adventures start getting harder, you're going to start needing assistance from your other heroes, because it's just not easy for one simple hero to take out these baddies. Because let's say you go against a baddie that requires 4 mind to take out. You're going, I got 4 mind, I got this. Oh man, I got a hack, I'm going to get an extra die. Oh great, I'm going to roll all these dice. And then, well, you don't always roll that well, but you're going to roll a couple 1s, 2s, and 3s. And guess what? Doesn't matter how high your stat was, you still failed on the roll. So what you now have to do is you have to start relying on the assistance of the other heroes, the other saints. And the positioning of the saints around the table as you're playing with your friends matters. The positioning of your saints at locations as they're at the different nexuses matters. Because if they're at a nexus with you, they can help you better. If they're at a different nexus, then they have to be seated to your left or to the right to be able to help you. Otherwise, they can't help you at all. And you really start needing the help from your other saints, because as you're rolling these dice, you need to get the rerolls. So they're going to have abilities like, say, okay, I'm going to reroll these ones, hope I'm going to get better. Yeah, I succeeded. I got 17. I managed to succeed at this check. But there's an additional challenge in this game, because as the other players are helping you, the encounters are going to start mutating, which means now that you got to start making more stronger decisions as you play this game. It's not nearly a simple decision of going, okay, I got the death's head here. Can somebody play a boon? Okay, I'm going to throw a whole bunch of dice and I'm going to win. Now, I'm not trying to be mean to the Pathfinder Adventure Card Game, but you understand how the game played if you played it. Because as you would play the game, you would basically hoard cards and wait for the final encounter. And in that game, if you timed out the game, there was no penalty to it, which is not the case in this game. That's another evolution of this game. You can't just say, well, guys, we don't have a chance of winning this one. Let's just go ahead and time it out, and then we'll move on. Because even if you time out this one, guess what? You're still going to start getting those deaths, and those deaths are going to add up. And remember, like I told you earlier, this is a game that is much about the heroes and the world, because it's possible for a hero to get enough deaths. And if you do, your hero's dead, and they're gone. They're going to be put in the stash, and they are not going to come back at all. Again, increasing the feel of how this game is trying to mimic like a modern supernatural TV show, where you see heroes going to come into the show. Heroes may go out of the show as different encounters happen, as they evolve the storyline. And sometimes heroes die, and they're not going to come back unless they're that special guy who's going to be resurrected and get that special power. But that was that one special episode of Supernatural. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is they've taken a whole bunch of evolutions and changes to the Apocrypha game to evolve the adventure card game system itself. And it's not just a repeat of what we've done before with a brand new skin. There's new rules, new evolutions, and new ways the game is going to play that modernizes the adventure card game system and makes new rules and new changes to the game. Just a couple different things, just to talk about some of the things that I really enjoy about this game. I like the nexuses. I like how the nexuses work out, where you have decisions where it's not easy to close these nexuses all the time, and sometimes you're going to have to play omens. Now granted, the omens, we kind of got the concept of omens before, where we're using cards, what I like to say, to dig. You're using them to dig deeper into the deck. Well, now you're having good omens and you're having bad omens, and as you get more powerful and you start getting these permanent fragments, the more of these permanent fragments you get, the more you start losing the good omens. You start having less and less good omens in your deck. So these wonderful omens of hope, they're going to start being removed from the game, and you're going to be stuck with these omens of doom. Again, adding to the progression of how the game is going to scale and how the game is going to get much more challenging. Now, to back this up a little bit, I've already talked about how the world evolves and how the characters evolve as you're playing this game. Now, there's one little thing that's almost kind of like a little of a disconnect in how this game plays compared to the Pathfinder Adventure Card Game. In the Pathfinder Adventure Card Game, you were really tied to your hero very strongly. Your specific hero was going to level up. Your specific hero was going to gain extra powers. You were going to make choices on how your hero was going to level up, gain permanent abilities, allow you maybe get extra cards in your deck, extra stats, and everything's going to change how that's going to go. This game doesn't do that, and that may be a disconnect for some of the players of this game. You may really like that or maybe not like it. In a way, it's a bonus because you don't feel like you have as strong of a connect to the heroes as much as you have a connection to the world. You're going to start off every one of these missions and go, so we have to fight this one bad guy, and he is really strong with rage. But if we do these certain things, and if we don't have these certain abilities, he's going to be really challenging. So maybe this isn't a good mission for this one hero to go on. Maybe the saint should sit out, and maybe they should go on to the side mission. Again, emulating the TV show that I think this game is really trying to emulate very strongly. So the heroes don't have as much of an evolution. Yes, your card as you play the game is your deck of cards. You're going to be evolving these cards, removing cards, and adding cards. But the basic statistics of your hero really are not going to evolve that much. Your statistics are pretty much going to be stagnant for the entire amount of the game that you have play. The real changes are going to come from the enduring fragments that you're going to gain, which are going to add more power for your heroes. And your changes are going to come from these fleeting fragments, which you're going to use one time and get rid of. So it almost feels like, you know, you're going to have one adventure where the heroes are going to get the magic stick of doom to wipe out the bad guy. They're going to use a stick of doom that's going to take out this one bad guy. And the next adventure, the next bad guy is there and our magic stick of doom is gone. So we must find another trick, another way, another evolution to stop this bad guy. Again, creating this very strong feel of this evolving world where the heroes are interacting with the world versus being the stars of the show. They are a star of the show, but the other star was the heroes, the villains, and the world itself. Now, there's some other things about the Apocrypha Adventure Card Game that I haven't quite covered yet that are actually really cool, and I just want to go over them very quickly because some of these changes are things that I really, really appreciate. I like how they do these structures for the game. Now, I, at first, was really disliking these at first because they drove me mad when I was at first learning the game. Because the way you build these, it felt like it was a challenge trying to learn the game because as you're playing every one of these adventures, you're looking at these three cards. Learn how to count today. You're looking at these three cards to figure out how to play your adventure. You're looking at your storybook, figuring out how to play your adventure. You're fighting these nexuses, which are double-sided. You're trying to read and go, okay, what does this mean? Okay, to seal, not to seal, and everything like that. So at first, I was really frustrated when I was learning this game, trying to see these different structure cards, trying to get this rule book, and trying to put it all together, put the game together the way it is. Once I got past the learning hurdle for the game, I actually started appreciating it more because it added to the episodic feel of this game, of how it feels like a TV show. I appreciate how the nexuses interact. I appreciate the storylines they built. I appreciate even the mutation mechanics of when saints try to assist you and they're going to add to the challenges of every one of these encounters. Now, I haven't talked about this too much, and again, this is something that at first was really frustrating to me as a new player because this was constantly adding challenges, and when you're playing the very first couple of adventures, you'll start noticing that you really don't mutate at all because you just don't think it's worth the risk versus the reward. But as you start playing more and you start seeing these adventurers that are going to start playing out differently, and it's no longer simple enough to say, oh, okay, I can just fail this encounter, doesn't matter because it's not going to hurt me. Well, sometimes these encounters and these adventures are going to start hurting you because it's no longer a simple race of fighting a clock through the Omen deck. It's no longer a race of, okay, we just need to get everything before the Omen deck is handled. Sometimes it's different challenges such as you got to rescue bystanders. Sometimes your challenges are you got to get certain threats before you get other threats. Sometimes your challenges are you're going to go through a deck where your entire timer is a whole bunch of nexuses, where you're digging through these nexuses trying to find this mad robotic car that's trying to destroy the world. And that's all just on the first couple of missions. Once you start getting the additional missions like the werewolf missions, you're going to start seeing some extreme challenges. Some of these final encounters require an 18 to defeat. Now, remember what I said earlier? You only get to keep 3 dice to decide if you succeed in an encounter. That basically means you need to roll 3 6s and have 3 6s to keep, showing just how challenging some of these encounters are. Now, of course, there are some cards that allow you to break the rules, and there is actually one card that allows you to keep a 4th die, so it's not impossible, but just understand that this game has a very strong progression, which I feel is much more stronger than the original Pathfinder Adventure Card Game, and has a nice steady slope to it, but it does start ramping up very, very quickly, and you're going to start seeing the challenges, and you're going to start seeing that you're forced to start making some really tough decisions, because it's not like you have the safety net where you just go, yeah, guys, you know, we're just not going to win this one. Let's just time it out. Who cares? And let's try this mission again. Because even if you time out the mission, somebody's going to get a death, and that's going to make it much more challenging. So you just can't just, you know, use a simple, easy escape plan. Not only that, you're going to have to worry about if you get enough of these deaths, your saints are going to start dying permanently, which means you can't use them anymore. And I can tell you, some of these saints work great together on some missions. Some of these saints not so great on some of these missions. So you kind of really have to think about it, and think about this game as if you're playing like through an episodic TV show, where you're going to say, hey guys, we just got a phone call from our boss saying that there's a certain baddie over here in Candle Point, or we got to fly over to Seattle, take care of these robotic cards, or we get word that there's a werewolf somewhere, let's go hunt it down. And you're going to go, hey, okay, let's go grab this, and let's head on over there. And you create this game where you're going to involve all these saints, and you will actually get to the point, and this is kind of an unfortunate thing about the game, and I'll cover this in just a second, but you're going to get to the point where you're going to build multiple saints, and as you're playing with your friends, you guys are going to go, hey, let's go on this mission. And I think if you take Dr. Z's, and you take the cop, and you take her, and you take him, we're going to be able to go through those missions, stand some really good chances, so let's pull out their decks of cards. So the negative to that, though, is that while you feel like you want to keep all these heroes built up with their decks, unfortunately the game does not come with enough cards to build up all these saints. The most amount of saints you can ever have built at any one time is going to be 6 saints. So you're going to have to keep a piece of scrap paper where you're basically going to list which cards each one of the saints has when you start rebuilding their decks. And I do think that's kind of an unfortunate thing. I would have really loved it if I could have kept every one of my saints decks built at all time, and really help reinforce that episodic feel where I feel like I can just go, hey, this time in Apocrypha, the TV show, our heroes went after blah, 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 blah. So I would have appreciated that, but unfortunately it's kind of a negative there. You don't have enough cards to keep enough saints decks built. There's a way to work around it. You're just going to have to do a little pen and paper action and write down what cards go in each saint's deck. And then you're going to have to rebuild their decks in between missions if you're switching out the saints. So it's not a big deal. It's not perfect, but again, it's not a totally terrible thing. So I've covered a lot of positives about the Apocrypha card game, and it's easy to say some really good things. I mean, it's easy to say negative things. I mean, this game is actually, mechanically, it's really super simple. The basic idea of the game mechanically is you're playing cards in an effort to hedge your dice rolls, in an effort to roll high enough to defeat threats, to go on missions, and win the game before you run out of time. So mechanically, the game is not really super complex. Rulebook wise, though, the game feels like it is the most complex game out there because the rulebook itself is not written very well. And even if you go pick up the most recent version of the rulebook, which you can download, which definitely goes into a lot more details of the rules, it doesn't help the fact because this game uses a lot of extremely obtuse terms. These obtuse terms make the game so much harder to learn, and it doesn't really need to be as hard as it is to learn thanks to these really strange terms that it's going to use. I mean, you're going to go out there and you're going to check a nexus. Oh, you mean a location? Okay, I get it. You could have called a location, make my life a little bit more easy, because I don't want to learn a brand new lexicon while I'm trying to learn the rules of a game. Okay, you're going to use a structure to build a mission. Okay, oh, I get it. I need to pick 3 mission cards that match the wording in the storybook to understand how to play the mission. Oh, I get it now. When I was first learning how to play the game, I had no idea what the heck they meant by structures. When you're playing the game, you're going to roll the dice and you're going to evaluate. Oh, you mean I'm going to roll the dice? Okay, I get it. You're going to use your saints. Okay, no, I take it back. The term saints is actually pretty cool, and I can appreciate the term. That's actually pretty cool, and I'm kind of being funny here, but I want you to understand that there is a whole bunch of obtuse terminology in this game that makes a game that could have been really easy to understand more difficult than it needs to be. Now, this game is a game that is very much based on its lexicon, and if you can get past the hurdle of this lexicon, the lexicon makes sense. But my God, learning that terminology can be much, much a headache inducer that you will not believe. I mean, you're trying to learn about a sanctify step where you're going to guard, escape, and seal, but you're going to go to the seal step if you got a minion, but if it's a true threat, that's actually the master. It's really confusing. I mean, hopefully my tutorial video and my sample gameplay can help break it down for you, but I can tell you when I was first learning this game, it took me multiple play sections between the official rewrite of the rulebook, the original rulebook, and a little bit of help from Board Game Geek just for me to make sure I was playing the game right. Because there are a lot of times I was going, okay, I think this is what it means. Let me play. Nope, that isn't what it made sense, because now I see this other card that makes more sense and tells me how I was playing the game was definitely wrong. So now I need to go back and re-educate myself on how to play the game. And a lot of that could have been avoided if they will use some less obtuse terms. Yes, I get it. You want to use these really cool terms that help feel very thematic and bring about the theme of the game. You don't have locations. You have dark nexuses of evil. I get it. It's hard to learn a game. You want to go out there and sanctify a location. Yes, you're removing the evil from this location by sanctifying it. No, you're just killing the bad guy. Come on, just use some simple terminology. It would have made the game so much simpler to learn if I didn't have to learn this horrible terminology that's going to make everything so much more challenging to learn. Now, once I've learned the game, once I can appreciate the challenges of actually playing the game, I like the game quite a bit. I think it's a very good game. It's a really good cooperative game. It plays really well. I enjoy the theme. I like the challenges and the progression, the slow scaling of how the game is. I like the evolution of the heroes, even though they don't feel like they evolve as well as a Pathfinder Adventure Card Game. But I actually have a kind of a more of attachment to these heroes, because again, when I play this game, I feel like I'm playing in a TV show, and I'm having a heck of a lot of fun with the craziness and the themes and the things that you see from TV shows. I feel that theme coming through strongly in this game, through the storybooks that are going through and playing in this modern world. And I haven't even covered it all, but there's also an application that you can download. It's free to install. You can put it on your Kindle Fire tablet, you can put it on your cell phone, you can put it on your Android, your iPhone, whatever you want. And basically what it is every single day when you launch the application, it's going to give you a new random challenge based on real world events. And some are going to be really stupid and silly, such as famous movie star birthdays or famous things that are happening throughout the world, but every one of them is going to add a little bit of a quirk to every single mission. So I like how they create this really rich world, this rich environment, in a really cool fantasy theme, a modern fantasy theme, to create this world where we're these saints and we have the ability to see the evils of the world. We're hunting down the evils of the world, and we're trying to destroy them to save this world. So there's a lot of good things to say about this game. There's a couple of negative little things to say about the game, but most of them are just the pure obtuseness of trying to learn the game, the horrible way of trying to learn all the terminology. But once you get past all that, the game is actually pretty darn good. So this game does play from 1 to 6 players. And another thing I haven't actually covered yet, and I want to cover right now, is let you know that they did do some things to fix some of the issues that the Pathfinder Adventure Card Game had on the higher player counts. Now, if you ever play the Pathfinder Adventure Card Game, it does say it plays up to 6 players. Don't ever play with 6 players. Not only is the game very, very slow, but the timer that's built into the game never changes. It's the same timer for 1 hero all the way up to 6 heroes. So when you play 6 heroes, some of those adventures become nearly impossible to win because you have so many locations you're spread out across. It does feel like when they built this game, they actually planned for that, and they did a much better job of balancing the scale out among the higher player counts. Now you're going to add more locations with extra players, but they did a better job, it feels like to me, of balancing out the ability to win the game. I don't always feel like I'm being cheated when I play at the higher player counts and losing by timing out just because I didn't have enough time. I'm usually feeling like I'm losing on the higher player counts because of the challenges I had, because of the poor decisions I made, by maybe not getting the right doom or the right hope nexus, by not visiting the nexuses in the right order, or just by blind luck of the dice. Because if you watch my playthrough video, you see me roll bad a lot, and I mean a lot of bad rolling. But hey, I still managed to pull it out in the end by smart gameplay, smart card play, and using good abilities and pulling it all together. So this game does play great from 1 to 6 players. I am still going to say that this is another game that the sweet spot for me, I think, and probably the way they designed it, is going to be 3 to 4 heroes. Not because of the game is working against you with the mechanics that are going to prevent you from winning at the higher player count. It just seems that you're going to get more of the decisions, more of the assistance, which is really the strength of what this game has. The strength of this game is how it plays by forcing the different saints to assist each other. You can't win this game alone, which means also that if you're going to play this game as a one-player game, you are going to want to play with 2 saints. The main reason why is because this game is designed for the saints to help each other. You have abilities that feed off each other. You have cards that play off each other. You have all these different things that allow you to play off each other, and you're not going to experience the game if you play with only 1 saint. Yes, you can play with 1 saint if you want to. No, the game is not going to fall apart, but you're not going to see some of the rich decisions that come along from having another hero, helping you go into different locations, helping you figure out these nexuses, giving you assistance, and giving you extra different decisions. So I'm going to say this game does play well from 1 to 6 players. The sweet spot for me is 3 to 4 players. If you're going to play with 1 player, you definitely want to have 2 saints minimum. Don't play with 1 saint. Doable, don't recommend it. You can play the game all the way up to 6 saints, but I'm going to say it's probably not the best up to 6 saints. Basically because the game starts dragging just a little bit, and you can't assist each other as much in the higher player count games. Because remember, generally speaking in this game, unless you're at the same nexus as another saint, you can only help the saint to the left or the saint to the right. Which means if you're playing a 6-player game, there's 3 other players that you can't help unless you happen to be at the same nexus. So it's not bad. It's not a terrible thing to play at 6 players. Just understand that once you get past that 4-player mark, it's going to be a little bit more chaotic because you can't assist your other saints quite as well. So overall, I'm going to recommend the Pathfinder Adventure Card Game. I think there is a phenomenal amount of replay in this game. The base box itself comes with 18 missions, and even if you play every one of those missions one time only, you're looking at nearly 40 hours of gameplay right there. You have a nice evolution, you have a nice storyline, you have 2 different box expansions. Each one of them is going to add, I think, 30-ish, maybe up to 40 different adventures. I have to go back and do the math again. And every one of those expansions is going to add some extra mechanics to the game. It evolves the game, and I don't want to give away any spoilers, but I will just tell you that every one of these storybooks is going to do a unique mechanic to evolve the game and make the game play differently. And your first Cannon Point series of missions are going to seem like child's play once you get into those harder missions. Those later missions are richer in story, richer in theme, richer in mechanics, and much more richer in different challenges that you're going to experience. And the cool thing is, some of the things you encounter in certain storybooks, you can carry over into different storybooks. So the order you play some of these storybooks is also going to affect your grand experience with the Apocrypha Adventure Card Game. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed this video series covering the Apocrypha Adventure Card Game. If you have any comments or questions, make sure you leave them down in the YouTube comments down below. I'll be sure to get to them as quickly as I can. You can also feel free to email me at off-the-shelf-board-game-reviews. That's otsbgr@gmail.com. Be sure to answer your email as quickly as I can. If you enjoy this video series, click that like button, click that subscribe button, and as always, thanks for watching.